This is a no-brainer for me. Michigan State's going to win that game. I'm pretty confident with that. They're going to win it by, we'll say, 14 points.
Lewerke to throw it. And picked off! Watch out! Julian Love, touchdown! Irish, 59 yards.
I'm going to take Penn State to beat Iowa. I think Penn State's the best team in the East.
McSorley across the middle. Touchdown! Jawan Johnson. Penn State wins it. A walk-off touchdown.
Preview.
Next game, Mississippi State at Georgia. Mississippi State, the one team that keeps me from going a perfect 5-0 last weekend. So they're kind of my Achilles heel at the moment, it seems. I'm going to take Georgia in that one.
Flea flicker to get the night started. Downfield looking for Godwin. Into his hands. And guess which dogs are barking first? Uga, get after it.
Preview.
You know, everybody's trying to say that Vanderbilt might shock them and beat them at home. I don't see it. I think it's one of those games that now that everybody's saying that, it's going to really make Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide mad, and they come out and they roll. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think Alabama wins by more than 18 points.
Low snap. Scarborough is going to walk in. Touchdown, Alabama.
Low snap, hands it off. They had the right play on, bounces it outside, and there's no tackling that guy.
I'm going to take Purdue to win it by 4 points.
Back to the ground and in for the touchdown. Isaac puts Michigan in front by 2 scores here in the fourth.
Good morning, Purdue University. Happy Friday. Welcome to Next Point Wins. I am your host, Matthew Geely. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by for this hour of sports talk here on WCCR Purdue and the Tuned In app. You can listen live, and if you miss any part of the show or can't make the entire thing because of class or whatnot, check me out on my podcast. Starts at just around 3 o'clock. It's going to be the show on record. If you watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see the sights and sounds of the turntable here in the bottom of Cary Basement. Stop on by if you're near Cary Club at the moment. You can look out into the glass and see into the show, and it's playing live over the loudspeakers, so you'll be able to hear me there as well. And I'll also be on SoundCloud for all those who prefer to listen to their podcasts on SoundCloud. So those will be up later this afternoon. Once again, you can contact the show, nextptwins@gmail.com. Send me your emails, any types of questions, comments, or concerns you want to be addressed on the show. You can send them my way. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of opinions, both positive and negative, at the end of this hour. So send them my way. Also, you can tweet at me. I'll be checking my Twitter throughout the show. It's Matt_Geely on Twitter. That's where you're going to find today's poll question as well. And it's a doozy. And it kind of strings in with the entire conversation of the show. And the poll question is, at the moment, the world that is all things sports is in either A, a good place, or B, a bad place. I'll give you my opinion on what's going on around the country. And I'm going to start out by saying that, in sports, we always try to put labels on things. We call it the greatest play, the craziest play, the best, the worst, all-time great, all-time worst. Well, I'm going to put a label on these last 7 days, and this one might stand to the test of time. These last 7 days, well, I guess it'd be 6. 7 will be tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe something else will happen between now and tomorrow. There's always, after this week, there's a great possibility that it will happen. But these last 7 days have been 7 of the craziest days in the sporting world we've ever seen. And that goes from a local standpoint here at Purdue University to nationally. And I always try to be honest and clear about what goes on this show, behind the scenes and through the Brainy Bunch and the guys working in the back room and my preparation and my view on things. Well, here's another situation of me being honest and clear about what is happening. I normally, you can kind of see on Twitter, on YouTube, if you are listening to the podcast later today, I normally have things here. I normally have papers. I usually have my phone in a water, but I usually have like notes. I have bullet point schedule, kind of saying at this time, start moving on, get out of this topic. That way I don't rant and miss something important because I look up at the clock and see that my time's out. So I try to have bullet points of things I want to cover and specific facts or stats I want to make sure I throw in along with my take on things. If you look today, I got nothing. I don't have a rundown. I don't have a schedule. I don't have anything. Because today is different than any other show we've ever done. And some people might love it. Some people might hate it, and that's fine. Email me, tweet at me how you feel about the way this is going to go. But we're just going to talk. We are going to have an open and honest conversation about what is happening in the world of sports and how that overflows into the world in general, and we are going to talk as long as we need to. I have stuff prepared to talk about Bears and Packers in the game last night. I have trade talks with Dwayne Wade and how he's going to the Cavs. We can talk about the Cubs and clinching the division, but we're not going to start there today. If we get to that, I hope we do, and we'll get to that. But there's some serious things that need to be discussed, and I'm not here to change anybody's opinion. You, thankfully, are flipping on this show, either a student on campus or listening somewhere else around the country on the podcast. You are tuning in to get your daily sports fix, or your weekly sports fix for me that way. And that's great. And I really do appreciate that audience. I'm checking our numbers today because I know last episode we were really close. We're getting close to reaching 1,000 listeners and viewers on the podcast, and that means the world to me. It really does. It shows that what I'm doing has a purpose and that there's an audience who enjoys it or hates it. And if you're hate watching me, I appreciate it because you're still watching me. So thank you. If you're hate listening, love you. Thank you. Big fan. So I'm not here to change your opinion or to make a difference on what you think. I'm here to educate and inform. I'm not going to push my agenda or my feelings onto you. I hope you disagree with some of the things I say, and I hope you email me your thoughts, and so I can bring them on the show next week and we can have a discussion about it. But I just want to be able to educate you to where you can have an open and honest conversation with coworkers, friends, family, classmates, whoever it might be, that you know all your facts and you know what's true. And that's all that matters. And so this whole crazy week of sports began on Saturday. And it began locally. And that's where I'm going to start today. So to all of you who made it out to the BTN tailgate Saturday morning before the Purdue game, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I sure had a lot of fun. I thought it was a great atmosphere. I was shocked by how many people came out for it. I thought the show was hilarious. They brought out Matt Painter and Robbie Hummel and Mike Allstott and Coach Jeff Brom. I mean, that's awesome. It was really cool. It was a neat experience. It was an experience that I never thought I'd get in my 4 years after watching the first 2 years of Purdue football while I was here as a student. So just seeing us back on the map was really, really cool. I know it was hot, but all you guys who came out and supported early, that was awesome. So we had the BTN tailgate, then we had the game. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on what happened. And a lot of it kind of played out exactly how I thought it would. If you missed last show, go back and if you have the time, listen or watch on the podcast, SoundCloud or YouTube, my first 30 minutes of the show. You could probably even limit it to about the first 15 minutes. But I just pretty much dove into the game and scouting report, and a lot of what I said unfortunately came true. I was hoping some of it wouldn't happen, but it did. Michigan's tight ends were too much for Purdue to handle, especially in the second half. Michigan as a team was too much for Purdue to handle in the second half. That first half of football was some of the most fun I've had watching Purdue football all year because they were grinding it out. I mean, their defense making stops, offense having trouble moving the ball, but then they got a couple nice drives put together. They got 2 really good drives. Defense keep on getting off the field. The place was on fire. It was lively. It was hot, and people were going crazy. It was so much fun. And then we went to halftime, and something small switched, and it caused a huge reaction. And the problem that I saw, and it's not on the players, it's not on the coaches, it's not on the game plan, it's just the way it happened. I thought the players gave incredible effort from start to finish. They didn't quit, they played hard, they played with what they had, and they tried their best. And because of that, us as a student body and as a fan base of Purdue football shouldn't give up on this team, because they definitely showed that they deserved to be there. They didn't get blown out. Second half, they were manhandled. It got hot. We're thin. That's no surprise. I said that at the beginning of the year. We're really strong, and then we get really thin quick, especially on defense. And we had 2 players, unfortunately, get ejected for targeting. Both of them will be out the first half of the next game, so that will be interesting to see how we're able to compete against Minnesota in the first half, not next week, but the week after, because this weekend we have a bye. We got a couple players ejected. We got tired, and the defense was on the field too long, and because of that, Michigan took advantage. And Michigan did what every great team should do. They saw a weakness, they exploited it, and they did it to perfection. I thought that our game plan in the first half was phenomenal, and I thought that the problem that happened in the second half was, well, first off, we didn't have a first down. The entire second half, Purdue's offense didn't have a first down. We had negative total overall yards in the second half. That includes penalties and sacks and turnovers. We didn't have positive yardage. You're not going to beat a single team in the country if you can't get a first down or if you don't have positive yards. You won't. I'll bet my life on it. That being said, we were still in the game, but the 3 and outs killed us because that defense was on the field for so long, and they got tired, and they had every right to get tired, and they did. And Michigan took advantage, and they buried us in the second half. So kudos to them. It was a great win for them, and the atmosphere was great at Purdue. Purdue football is back on the map. This team isn't done yet. They get a week off to rest and regroup and get healthy, and next weekend, it's fall break, so I know some students won't be here, but if you're around, get to the game. Minnesota's a good team. First-year coach and PJ Fleck as well, somebody that was reported to be on the radar of Purdue during their hiring search, and he's got Minnesota playing good, and that's a conference game on our side of the division, and one that you got to protect home field. So it'll be excited to see the Boilers back in action. It's going to be weird this Saturday not having Purdue football. I know I'm going to miss it. But it was a fun game. It was a beautiful day. From start to finish, it was great. And then Sunday happened. And Sunday was shocking. Monday was very confusing and shocking. And Purdue's head coach Jim Harbaugh had some things to say in general about visiting locker rooms and then some specifics of Purdue's, but most of his comments were general. So, and I think he made some extremely valid points. I also extremely agreed with Purdue's response. I thought their response was appropriate, and I'm biased, but I thought they said exactly what they needed to say and not more, which is important. And I thought that Coach Harbaugh stepped out of bounds on a few of his claims. And I also thought that he was right on the money with quite a few as well. So if you're not aware of the story, he had a press conference. I think it was Monday. Yeah, it was Monday. He had a press conference where he talked about visiting team locker rooms and how they should be looked at. And Purdue responded and agreed that if there wanted to be a conference-wide look into locker rooms, then they'd be all for it, and as they should be. I don't think anybody would disagree about the fact that if something could make players safer or feel safer, then they should go about it. Now, it was 90-plus degrees on Saturday. It was over 100 degrees, it felt like, on the field. I mean, it was hot. It was so hot. I went down for warm-ups, and I was sweating, and I was just standing there. I can't even imagine. It was hot. Purdue's visiting locker room does not have air conditioning. Now, that is something that was pointed out in our media guide to all the coaches and players of opposing teams, and it says that you can contact an individual or a group at Purdue, and they can help with arrangements to make things better or help in any way a visiting team needs help, pretty much. And so normally, is it 90 plus degrees on a fall day during Purdue football? No, it's not. But this was an exception, and I'm sure that locker room was very, very warm. Now, that being said, Michigan had their opportunity to come forward and find a new plan. They did not. I know they had a bus out by their locker room with the AC on, according to their radio pregame show, where coaches and players were going out and sitting in there to get some AC, which was a smart idea. And I didn't know it was that much of a problem, but it kind of blew up for a quick minute on social media and this and that. I think part of it was because it's Jim Harbaugh, and anything he says is going to be taken by a lot of different people because he is a very controversial human being who has a lot of opinions. And he also is a great coach, like a phenomenal coach. And because of that, people take his word and they respect it and they talk about it. And so that was one of his claims. He talked about our training tables, and he talked about their starting quarterback got injured, and it was a tough play. I didn't really see it as, it wasn't malicious by any means. When I saw it live, I didn't really think much of it. He was kind of going down, but he wasn't down yet. And I mean, you play to the whistle, and he kind of just got, the quarterback just kind of got bent the wrong way, it seemed, and got hit pretty hard by a couple of our defensive players. And he was down and hurt, and he had to be taken to that locker room, and eventually was taken to get x-rays. And that was another claim of concern by Coach Harbaugh to the media in his press conference. He didn't know why Purdue didn't have x-ray facilities on site. And the word on site is an interesting choice by the coach, because on site would be on campus. That's on site. Anything on campus is on site. Now, students here at Purdue, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you, because you're aware that Purdue has a doctor's office on campus. It's called PUSH, as we like to call it. And it's Purdue University Student Health, I think, PUSH, yeah. And there's an x-ray machine in there. And for all of you who've been there to PUSH for sick or getting prescription or whatnot, you would know that from PUSH to Ross-Ade is about 2 blocks. And it's not that far. It's much closer than a hospital, any near hospital, and they have a lot of the same x-ray services that a hospital would have, and different types of help. So Coach Harbaugh was not pleased that we didn't have those at the stadium, and if that's something that needs to be looked into around the conference, that's fine. But I don't think that was, I guess the reason why it was taken the wrong way by so many people on social media, Purdue fans or not, was the fact that you can't assume what he's trying to say, because you can only take his word. You should never make an assumption about somebody's agenda or what they're trying to say by their tone of voice or the words they choose. But he mentioned multiple times about player safety and competitive advantage, and Purdue had a great sentence in their statement about how, I mean, player health comes first over a competitive advantage every time, 10 out of 10. And you know, the air conditioning thing seemed a little whiny to me. The x-ray and the size and this and that, okay, if this needs to be talked about from everybody, that's fine, and that's great. And let's have that conference-wide discussion about it. And if this brings about change that is better for the player, then we thank Coach Harbaugh for bringing up what he brought up. But part of it just didn't settle right with a lot of people. Talking to students and fans and just the casual sports fan, it just didn't set right. And I lived in Cary my freshman year, and if we're going to talk about air conditioning, I lived in the Cary closets. We had no AC, and I went an entire year here at Purdue, first year on campus, away from home, without air conditioning, and I lived. I'm sitting here right now telling the tale. I lived. So it's doable. There were hundreds of students who left that game after sitting out baking in the heat and went back to their rooms and no AC. And they slept that night and they hung out the next day. And I mean, it's just complaining, kind of. So that happened on Monday, and it was kind of made into a bigger story than it really should have been. And I think we can all agree that it didn't really have much length to it, and it probably would have lasted a lot longer than it did, because Tuesday, it got real. It got real in the college landscape, and between that and Sunday in the NFL, this Michigan Pretty locker room story went away in a hurry. So that's fine. I hope that the Big Ten Conference still has the conversation about it and we move on from it. But let's go. We can go either NCAA or NFL. Just to remind you, you're listening to Next Point Wins on WCCR Purdue and the Tuned In app. My name is Matthew Geely. Contact the show, Matt_Geely on Twitter, or email in nextptwins@gmail.com. Just got done talking about the locker room fiasco, as you might say, that happened during and after the Purdue-Michigan game. And you can find Purdue's statement and Coach Hardball's news conference. You can find those both online. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go look at it, just so you have an idea of what all was being said. And that's that. So let's go NFL, because, I don't know if you guys have ever watched those 30 for 30s on ESPN. A lot of times they're really, really well done. They've done them on the 85 Bears. They've done it on, almost every big sports story you can think of. Kristen Leitner had one, which was good. They talked about Bad Boys. They talked about the Dream Team. Like every monumental sports moment pretty much gets turned into these 30 for 30s, and it helps people like me and people younger than me who don't remember or weren't alive to see or live what happened. It gives you a knowledge and an education on the history of sports, which I think is invaluable in a lot of ways. Well, Sunday in the NFL is going to be a 30 for 30, and it's going to be something that your kids are going to watch. Students here at Purdue, your kids are going to watch it. Your grandkids are going to watch it, and this is one of the very first real stories that you're going to be able to educate your kid on, because what happened on Sunday in the NFL, first off, the action on the field was insane. It was crazy. You had the 60-plus yard field goal by the Eagles to win the game. You had the Bears fiasco at the end of the first half, which we'll talk about later. You had Tom Brady go down the field and beat the Texans. It was crazy. It was so much action. If you have the red zone, last Sunday in the NFL paid for your red zone alone. And I watched the red zone from start to finish as I had the Bears game on, and it was fantastic. It started out in London when the Jaguars beat the brakes off the Ravens, and then you had the Bills upset the Broncos. Falcons and Lions comes down to a questionable call with the review, and they overturn the call and have a 10-second runoff to end the game. Insane. Colts barely hold on to beat the Browns at home. You had the Vikings thump the Buccaneers. Jets get their first win. Crazy. It was crazy. You add that to what happened off the field before every game, and ladies and gentlemen, I give you ESPN 30 for 30. We stand, or fist up, or take a knee, or in the locker room. I don't know what we're going to call it, but it's going to have some name like that. It's going to be, and they're going to open up with, have you ever taken a knee? Or, they always ask a really random question, it's what happens when politics and sports mix in a bowl, and then it's going to say something like take a knee, or yeah, that's pretty good. Hey, ESPN, you can use that. What happens when NFL and Donald Trump go out to a bar together? Somebody takes a knee. Yeah. So that's going to be our 30 for 30, and you all have your opinion on what these players are doing in the NFL, and I have mine, and we're going to leave it at that. But I guess it's it's crazy to me because we talked on this show last year. As I take a quick water break here, we talked on this show last year about Colin Kaepernick and what he did. And I would have been the smartest man in the world if I was able to predict what would come of it, and I wasn't. I didn't. But you know, it was a preseason game, and it wasn't the first time he'd done it. But just some reporter randomly turned and saw him and took a photo. Some newspaper guy, some photographer just happened to see him and turn and take a photo of him. And look where we are now. We are just over a year later, and look where we are now. It's crazy. And I would love, and hopefully when this 30 for 30 happens, Colin Kaepernick is still alive and he's open and honest, and he sits down and does an interview for the show, because I would love to be inside his head right now. I can't even imagine the emotion, either positive or negative, he's feeling, because he started something that is now, it's ginormous. And I don't care if you're white, black, yellow, orange, purple, pink, I don't care. You can't tell me that what he did, that single person and that single photographer who took that picture and where it is now, you can't tell me that that isn't incredible and amazing. Now, is it incredibly good, bad, amazing, amazingly good, bad? Well, that's where our poll question kind of comes in, because, you know, we take a look overall at sports and the sports world, and it's changing right in front of our eyes. And is it for the good or the bad? You have your opinion, and I have mine. Now, I was on record from the get-go, and you can go back on YouTube into the archives and check out some of my earlier episodes. I think I have it labeled in the show bio, Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, something, something about that. You can go back and listen, and if anybody has some extra time, I encourage you, because I went back and listened to that episode earlier this week, and it was, I mean, just where I thought the world was then and where we are now it's so different. It's like complete opposite. And I'm on record saying that these players have a platform. They have a platform because of their hard work. Let me break it to you out there. Your kid is probably not going to play in the NFL. And I say that to every student, every listener on this campus. When you have a child, there's a great chance that he isn't not going to play in the NFL. For every one of your kids who does, there's millions who don't. So these athletes are exceptional. They've worked hard. A lot of them have gifted ability, but they also have to work hard for it. And they've been through a lot. A lot of them have had rags to riches stories. A lot of them have been turned away, been shut down, and they currently have a platform. And yes, they're getting paid millions of dollars, but they still get a platform. Just like every actor, actress, singer, CEO, author, they all have millions of dollars, and they all have a platform, and their platform is engineered or designed towards a specific audience. My platform currently is NFL athletes and athletes in general. That's where I get my news. If you check my Twitter and you scroll down who I follow, or you scroll down my feed, it's sports everywhere. Some movies, because movie quotes are in there, and music, but sports is the main platform of my knowledge, and you get your knowledge through that. I think that these protests are needed, but done the wrong way. I don't like when they kneel for the national anthem. I am against that. I think that it's a peaceful protest, which I appreciate, but I think that it's skewed the wrong way. You're trying to get your message out about minorities and police brutality, but instead, and you should have a protest that is towards that. But all this, while it is towards that, it also has another road, it's a fork in the road, and what you're doing is taking two routes. You have the route that you wanted to take, and you have the other route that's happening at the moment. And that other route is people think you're disrespecting the flag. And to a lot of people's eyes, you are disrespecting the flag. And you're disrespecting soldiers and men and women who fought for your freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is one of the greatest things we have on this earth, and we are thankful to have in this country, because that's what makes us different from a lot of places. We have the right to do these protests, but I think that the message is getting murky because you're going about it the wrong way. Now, I saw some teams standing with their arms locked. I'll take that. At least you're not kneeling. The only time I really got angry this weekend, and every game they showed the national anthem, and every game somebody reporting at the game tweeted out a video of what was happening. The only people that really made me mad were the athletes that were stretching during the national anthem. They weren't even like kneeling in like protest. There was athletes who were just blatantly ignoring the fact that it was even happening, and they were just going about there. Like, one of them was doing an ab workout, somebody else was stretching. I will take somebody kneeling over you just blatantly disregarding it all day long. I thought that was inappropriate. I thought it sent no message at all. It didn't send any awareness, and I thought that was wrong. I thought the kneeling was wrong as well, but I would take kneeling over the stretching any day, and I thought that the people who stood with their fists in the air or arms locked, at least they were attentive to the flag and respectful towards it. Now, we saw in the Bears game, Bears-Steelers, Steelers didn't come out of the locker room except for one of their players who served in the Army, and Coach Mike Tomlin made a comment that the reason their team wasn't on the field was due to the fact that they couldn't come to an agreement as a team on what they should do. And so he said, if we can't come to agreement, we're not going out at all. But this one individual player went out and stood there. He then apologized for it later, which I thought was interesting. He said that he shouldn't have brought that negative light on his teammates, and he wasn't trying to be separate from them. But and he says if you could do it over, he'd do it different, which I thought was interesting as well. I didn't think he needed to apologize, but he did. And there's some photos, and I don't see with all this stuff, you got to be careful because it's so hard to tell what's real and what's fake. I'm learning in class right now. I've taken a couple media classes and social media classes, and people are getting so good at making fake accounts, and people are getting so good at making truly fake news. You go to some of these websites, and they have the ABC logo, and it looks almost identical to the actual ABC logo, but it's a little different. And I can see where the casual person will click on it and start reading and think that that's ABC News talking, and that this is real, and it's not. It's all agenda based. It's all fake. People are getting paid per clicks. If you see something on Facebook and you share it, and it's from a fake site or a false news site, every time that gets shared, these sites are getting revenue because of their sponsors, and it just blows my mind. There's ways you can combat this. Do your research before you I asked it before you share or click that retweet button or email a link to a friend, or text to somebody. Do your research on it. If it looks kind of shady, look it up. Look up the source. Do a Google search of the source. It can save you from looking dumb, and it can save what you retweet from getting retweeted by multiple people. Then it's getting out, and it's just wrong. It's not true. So do your research. And you saw pictures of this Steelers player outside the tunnel, and there's a photo of his entire teammates behind him in the tunnel standing attentive. I don't know if that was true or not. And it was. I don't think it was, because I haven't seen that photo recently, and it was kind of gone before I was really even able to look into it and see and do my own research on it. So, I guess the moral of that story is check what you're putting out. And it was just a crazy weekend in the NFL, and there's people out there who are DirecTV did a promo I saw where they were giving refunds to people on the Red Zone and Sunday Ticket if they wanted to after the protests. And you saw videos of fans burning tickets and saying they're not going to the games and this and that. And you have every right to do any of those things you want. You have the right to not watch. I'm personally going to keep watching because it's important. No act of protest or change ever came about easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Let me say that again. If it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not easy, and these guys get that, but they're doing it. And although sometimes they don't go about it the right way, they're learning from it, and it's bringing awareness. Whether you like it or not, it's bringing awareness. And I'm going to keep watching the NFL. I'm keeping my Sunday ticket. I thought that was a good PR move by DirecTV to do that. I'm not sure how honest and forthcoming about it they actually were. I know there's some people who had some troubles trying to cancel it who wanted to, and DirecTV was asking a bunch of questions on why. So it looks good on paper. I'm not sure how serious they were about making that a thing. So we had that going on Sunday, and I thought it was incredible. Let's just take a quick 30-second time out here and kind of recap what we've gone over here on the first half an hour for any students who are just joining us on Next Point Wins, WCCR Purdue Tuned In app. My name is Matthew Geely. Thanks for joining us for this hour-long sports talk show at Purdue University. And, we started out we talked about the game last Saturday, Purdue, Michigan, and the locker room fiasco that happened afterwards. And I gave my thoughts on that. Go back to the podcast on SoundCloud or YouTube if you want to catch that. And then I just got done kind of talking about Sunday in the NFL and the crazy games and the protests and the anthem. And I guess one more thing to add to that, no matter how mad we get or how much some of us don't watch the game, it's not going to change. These athletes aren't going to change what they do. So I don't know if you should just deal with it, because I don't want you to just move on and deal with it. If you have your opinion on it, you keep that opinion. That's what makes you different, and that's good. But let's be careful not to overstep our boundaries and talk out of turn. Let's make sure that we do our own research and get the true facts on what happens, and not from sites that don't exist. And when you talk about this years later in that 30 for 30 with your kids, explain the different opinions and the different sides of it, because it truly is a split feeling amongst people, and it shouldn't make you upset towards somebody, or it shouldn't make you unable to handle to have a conversation. This shouldn't define you, your thoughts on this. Everybody deserves to be heard, and I think that the overall message is overall not really being refuted. It's the way the message is going about that is getting refuted, and that shows a sign of maybe the actions should be tweaked a little bit to where it's solely targeted towards the goal of the group. Because right now it's not going to one place. It's split off, and some people are seeing it as a disrespect to the flag. Some people are seeing it as raising awareness towards police brutality and equality amongst minorities, and there should be that one straight path. So it'll be interesting to see. This isn't going to go away. It's going to be interesting to see how people handle it and how things progress. And I'm sure we'll be back to talk more about that later. All right. It's 12:40 here at Purdue University. Students who just got out of their power hour, welcome. I think it's a good time here. Let's get into some unsportsmanlike conduct, because I have some fun ones today, and the last one is it's going to be our next topic of conversation. It's going to be the last main bullet point in this crazy week that is the world of sports.
And now, on unsportsmanlike conduct.
Personal foul, number 15, unsportsmanlike conduct.
That's a horrible call!
First, unsportsmanlike conduct comes to us from that crazy Sunday in the NFL, and I shortly mentioned it earlier. Bears, Pittsburgh Steelers. Marcus Cooper. He is a special teams member of the Chicago Bears. He also plays defensive back for the Bears. He had a game to forget. A lot of times we talk about games to remember. It's a game to forget for Marcus Cooper. The Sheriff McManus, comes around the edge, blocks the field goal to end the half for the Bears, and it ricochets off the Sheriff's hands and straight into the lap of Marcus Cooper. And he's off and running. And he's about a 60-yard scamper down the field. If you haven't seen this video yet, you got to go look it up. It's hysterical. It really is. So he's running. And then it reminded me, I watched it live, and it reminded me of like a scary movie where you see somebody approaching from behind another character, and you just want to yell out, like, look out, or watch out, or duck, but you can't because they can't hear you through the screen. He got to about the 10-yard line, and he started jogging, and I mean jogging. He got to the 5-yard line, and he was strutting. He got to the 2-yard line, he had stopped running completely. Now, I'm not even going to try to explain this because I don't get it. I don't get how you can possibly stop 2 yards short and not know where you are. You're on the left side of the field near the corner, so you got the big orange pylon sitting there, which should be a pretty universal indicator that that's the goal line. Not to mention the goal line, that should be an indicator as well on the line you got to cross. If you're running and the Bears, their end zone, it's got Bears written in orange. So if you're looking ahead, if you're not looking down at the pylon or the line, well, you're probably looking ahead then at the paint in the end zone, so you know you ain't there. You got the big yellow goalposts. You know you're not there yet. Like, I don't get it. You got the stands, and you're pretty far away from the stands, so probably should be an indicator. You got there's so much that goes on, and I get that you could have, like, it's one of the greatest moments of your life. You're scoring a touchdown. Your mom's cheering you on. Your hometown's going crazy. You stop short. He stopped short. He stopped at the 2-yard line. Great hustle by the kicker and another member of the Steelers. Really great hustle. I mean, dude didn't give up on the play. He comes running back, spikes the ball, strips it, then it gets batted out of the back of the end zone. And for a second there, I thought they were going to call a safety on the Bears. If they would have called a safety on the Bears, I would have lost my mind. I almost already did lose my mind, but I would have really almost lost my mind. And Bears got the ball on like the 1.5 yard line after the penalty with one untimed play. And we jumped off sides. Yeah, that was awesome. Jumped off sides, had to move back, kicked the field goal, got 3 points out of it. Luckily, won the game in overtime. Cooper also gave up a touchdown later in the game and a couple big plays. Not a good game for Marcus Cooper. I was kind of surprised he's still on the roster. He is still on the roster. Unsportsmanlike conduct to you for not being aware of your surroundings, not checking your six. That's also important. Look behind you. See somebody still coming 100% speed at you and know that you're probably not there yet. And I guess showboating. I mean, just get in the end zone. Are you kidding me? It can't happen. Unsportsmanlike conduct from Marcus Cooper. Next one, and got a little twofer action for you guys, a little 2-for-1 sale, because this is an unsportsmanlike conduct, but it has to do with a member of the Brainy Bunch, and there's a little bit of animosity in the back room because they turned on each other. They turned on one of their own, and this has now been given to me, and it's a Brainy Bunch special report about a Brainy Bunch member. This is a first-timer, guys. Hold on to your hats. It's about to get crazy.
It's time for another Brainy Bunch special report. The mission of the Brainy Bunch is not to break news, but to bunch it.
Here's the story.
Eric the Roommate. If you're familiar with the show, you'll know Eric the Roommate. He was on last year, one of the last episodes of the season, talking about minor league baseball nicknames. Eric the Roommate joined us in the turntable, and he's a proud member of the Brainy Bunch, great contributor to the show. And it was Wednesday night. I was watching TV. It was about 11:40. It was about 11:20. And I'm flipping through the channels, and I'm about ready to go to bed. I was about 2 channels away from turning off the TV and going to bed. And I stumble across top 5 movie of all time, top 2 in my book all time, number 2 all time for me. Remember the Titans was on TV. And I don't know if you guys, well, you've all seen Remember the Titans, because if not, you can go join Eric the Roommate on this Unsportsmanlike Conduct bus. Because Eric was like, what movie is this? First off, I almost moved out, and then I almost asked him to move out. But then I came to the conclusion I was going to be polite and try to show some patience, and I explained to him that he's currently about to experience one of the greatest movies of all time. He watched about 5 minutes of it. You guys ever watch a movie with somebody that you really like and they've never seen it, and you keep kind of looking next to or out of the corner of their eye, seeing how much they're enjoying it, because you want to make sure they're having the same amount of enjoyment as you have in the movie. I was kind of doing that to him, and he was on his phone, kind of looking. Every once in a while, he'd look up and watch, something would catch his eye. And then about 10 minutes later, he leaves and goes to bed. Are you kidding me? You'd never seen a life-changing movie, and then you're just going to get up and walk out like it's nothing? Eric, the roommate, are you nuts? Yeah, I'm looking at you over there. Are you nuts? You've got to be crazy. Unsportsmanlike conduct. First off, for the lack of knowledge, culture yourself, Eric. Culture yourself on good movies, because that's a great movie. That's an all-timer. And second, when something like that gets exposed to you, you don't walk out. Do yourself a favor next time. I guess I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the fact that you are probably mad at yourself. Let me help you help me, Eric. Unsportsmanlike conduct to Eric the roommate. Unbelievable. Last but not least, unsportsmanlike conduct to Richard Sherman. He is a very smart individual. He went to a very prestigious college. He's very educated, well-spoken guy. He did not know that gambling happened in the NFL. He didn't know the NFL was so okay with it and turned a blind eye to it. Are you nuts? You didn't know? How do you not know? Have you ever heard of fantasy football, Richard Sherman? Without gambling and fantasy football, your game check would be split in half, maybe even a quarter of it. You didn't know? Before long, gambling is going to be legal in the NFL. We got a team moving to Vegas, Richard Sherman. And you want to talk about how you don't think it's right for the NFL to turn a blind eye to this? Dude, you got to get some information, because you don't know what you're talking about. All right, I got to move on, because we got one more big conversation to have, and this is one that it's going to go on for multiple episodes, so that's why I kind of kept it for last, because it's going to be around, kind of like the national anthem is going to be around, but this is going to be around in even a bigger limelight, and that's the third and final crazy thing that happened in these last 7 days. In the last part of this 30 for 30, they're going to have to split it into 3 parts. FBI has charged former NBA star Chuck Pearson, James Gatto, that's Adidas' director of global sports marketing, Merrill Code, who has current and former ties with Adidas and Nike, and Jonathan Brad Augustine, another member of Adidas, were all arrested and charged with giving college athletes and AAU coaches money in shoe deals under the table. This is something that's been going on since college basketball and college sports became a thing. If you've seen the movie Blue Chips, this is like Blue Chips all over again. And 4 assistant basketball coaches, one from Arizona, Auburn, Oklahoma State, and Southern California. Those universities currently have coaches who also got arrested. And let me make this clear, everybody. This is not the NCAA investigating. This is the FBI. FBI. You can lie to the NCAA. We've seen it happen a couple times a year. Universities, coaches, presidents, people lie to the NCAA. People aren't going to lie to the FBI. And if they do, it's not going to turn out well for them. So this is one of those things where the NCAA has been raking the mud for years, just seeing what kind of floats up, but really not really digging in. FBI just went underneath the muck and is looking around and saying, "What's up, guys?" Because they just found what's going to go down as one of the biggest scandals in all of college sports, and it's gonna affect football, it's gonna affect soccer, volleyball, wrestling. It's going to affect college athletics as a whole. And one thing that needs to be perfectly clear, and I see it every day in front of my own eyes, and it doesn't get said enough, not every school does this. There are universities who play by the rules, and because of that, have been getting punished in a different way for years. Universities who don't play by the rules are getting punished right now by the FBI. There's going to be tournament bans, there's going to be scholarship bans, there's going to be financial bans, there's going to be people put in jail for this. And they're getting punished for their lack of following the rules. Well, there's been schools for years who've been punished for following the rules. And they're getting punished because they're not getting the recruits and the success and the revenue that some of these other colleges are because they play by the rules and they do things right. I think that this is great for college basketball. I think this is great for the NCAA. It was about time this happened. And I believe that college athletes shouldn't be paid. That's my own personal opinion. I see it both ways. I would change my mind if there was a clear-cut solution, but I don't see the solution that's fair for everybody, and so I don't see why we should do it. If somebody would bring forth a fair and honest and equal solution to how we can pay student athletes, I'd be all for it. Sign me up 100%, but I don't think it's possible. The money is there, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. The money is there. There's no fair way to do it. How do you put a price tag on this athlete versus this athlete and this sport versus that sport and this university versus that university? You can't do it. And until we find out a way, it should stay the way it is. That being said, these coaches are in deep trouble. And if you think these assistant coaches aren't going to be talking, you're wrong. If you're a head coach and you know what you've done, I would not be sleeping well. AAU basketball, I've said this for years, is ruining the game of basketball. AAU basketball is everything that's wrong with organized basketball. You got these kids, kind of like Steph Curry's everything that's wrong with the NBA in a way, because he's so good and does crazy things that normal people can't do. But because of that, you got kids pulling up from 50, 60 feet in AAU leagues and whatnot. And Steph Curry, let me make sure I'm clear on this. He's not like a bad person or like he should definitely be in the NBA. I'm just saying that his style of play, while it's great for him because he's an exceptional athlete and an exceptional player, it hurts developing players because they see that and they want to mimic it, but they can't because they're not that good. So we'll have more on this topic as the weeks go on. Maybe we'll just do a weekly update on what's happening. Just know that this was a long time coming, and no matter what you hear, not everybody does it. And if somebody says that everybody does it, they're wrong. Not only are they wrong, but if it's a coach or an assistant coach who comes forth saying that, they're probably one of the ones cheating, and they're trying to make it look better for themselves. Rick Pitino is out at Louisville along with their athletic director. The rumor was that the athletic director was told to fire Pitino, and he said no thanks, and so they both went. If that's true, that's kind of funny. It's not funny because it's never funny when somebody loses their job, but it's comical to me that somebody would stick up for somebody like Rick Pitino after everything that's happened with him. You can only play dumb so many times. You can only say I didn't know so many times before it catches up to you. It caught up to Rick Pitino. He has a clause in his contract that he gets 10 days before they can officially fire him. So he has 10 days to, I guess, vouch for his job. And I've heard from multiple people and people close to him that he's not going to go down easy. He's going to go down swinging. And if that's true, it's going to be really entertaining to watch, because if he can play the I did not know card once again and let it pass, I don't see how Louisville can fire him for it. And it's crazy how that's going to happen. And the buyout for him is going to be huge. So much money on top of whatever they're going to get charged for. Louisville's in deep, deep trouble, and that's a basketball program in deep trouble. If I'm a coach, I would not want to go there right now. In 2 years, 3 years, maybe, yeah. That's a great roster they have, but there's a lot of baggage that goes with Louisville at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, Rick Pitino, 10 days to decide what he wants to do. It'll be interesting to see what he chooses. Also, we'll go real quick. Packers thumped the Bears last night. Mike Glennon looks horrible. 4 turnovers as a result of him. 2 picks, 1 fumble off the knee, and 1 fumble because he doesn't understand that when there's 9 guys in the box coming at you, you can't hold the ball for 5 seconds. Like, it was the first play of the game, and I get it. They try to take a shot deep, even though I think that's a horrible strategy because you got to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, and you should be running the ball close to 40 or 50 times. But no, you got Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen one of the best duos of running backs in the league, and we're just wasting away the best years of Jordan Howard, by the way. All the great years of Jordan Howard are getting thrown out the window right now because we can't put a product on the field that's worth anything. And we're the check down experts of the NFL, and that's all we got. We got nobody on the outside. Our wide receivers are thin and pathetic. Mike Glennon is horrible. You see 9 guys in the box. That means, I can do the math, 10, 11, 12. That's 3 guys who are not in the box to stop the run. You got 5 offensive linemen and 1 running back at most. That's 9 on 6. You're not blocking. You don't get to count. It's 9 on 6. That you get 2 seconds to get rid of that ball. 3 max if your offensive line does an exceptional job and slows up whoever's coming untouched. But you're going to sit back there and double clutch on a throw, and then as you're getting hit, go to throw it. Horrible. Take the sack. Cover the ball and get down, or throw the ball out of bounds. But you can't be sitting there taking your sweet time and causing turnovers. The knee fumble was comical. I thought the ball hit the special teams player that was ruled no touch on the punt fumble. Bears looked horrible. I don't want to see Mitch Trubisky, though, because we're just going to damage him. Next week, we got the Vikings on Monday night. ESPN is like, guys, please put Mitch Trubisky in. We heard CBS talk multiple times last night about, will we see Trubisky? During the lightning delays, somebody said, yeah, we'll probably will. No, I look at my tweets. I was like, you guys are nuts if you think Mitch Trubisky's coming in this game. No one is crazy enough to throw him into the lion's den that is Green Bay on a rainy, wet night. No, it's not going to happen. Come on, guys. They just said that so we stay watching, which I did watch the whole thing, unfortunately, but that was just a shameless plug to try to keep viewers. Now, do I see a possible situation where Mitch Trubisky plays next week? Yes. I just hope not. But then on the other side, I'm so sick and tired of watching Mike Glennon. I can't decide. ESPN will be in love if Mitch Trubisky comes out and starts that game, because that's going to bring in a lot more viewers for them. But that Minnesota defense is so good. And then you got Carolina, you got New Orleans. Sure, you can play them against New Orleans. That's fine. That's a tough schedule the Bears got. But I don't know how long you can keep going with Glennon. He looked so bad last night. Cubs clinched the NL Central. It's the first year ever that I can say that the Cubs are quiet. I didn't think it was possible. I was so annoyed by the Cubs last year. The Cubs stayed under the radar this year, and that makes me like them a little more. Thanks to the Dodgers at the first half of the season, the Indians and their winning streak at the end, Cubs have stayed below the radar. I'm not sure the rotation or their bullpen is good enough to win them another World Series. Their offense absolutely is. The rotation's close. The bullpen it's back and forth. We'll have a lot more baseball coverage in the upcoming weeks as we get close to playoff baseball time in October. What else do I got here? I need to cover. Talked Bears, Packers, talk Cubs. Dwayne Wade to the Cavs. Did the Cavs get better this offseason? I'm not sure. They add Isaiah Thomas. They add Derrick Rose. They add Dwayne Wade. You lose Kyrie. Does that make you better? I'm not positive. It'll be interesting to see one last go around there for D. Wade and LeBron. It's probably just 1 year in Cleveland for both of them. It'll be interesting to see how competitive they are. Locally, last night, Purdue Soccer 1-0 win over Illinois. That was on Big Ten Network if you were able to watch it. I was at the game. Maddie Williams scores another goal for the Boilermakers. She leads the Big Ten in goal score, and she leads the NCAA in points. She also is the all-time leader in points for Purdue Soccer, and she's just a couple goals away, I think 2 goals away from taking over that all-time record as well. Great player, amazing story as a sophomore, tearing her ACL as a junior, coming back for her senior year. So she tore it in the spring of her junior year, missed the whole season, comes back and is having an amazing year for Purdue Soccer, as they are now 4 now. 4-0-1. They had 1 tie against IU. 4-0 in Big Ten play with the tie. Incredible turnaround for this Purdue Soccer team, and a really fun team to watch. Purdue Volleyball 3-0 thump over the Hoosiers of IU and Holloway Gymnasium this week. Whooped them pretty good, 25-16, 25-17, 25-14. They were all right around there, so a beatdown, really. They go to IU now for another match this weekend. College basketball officially kicks off today. First practice this afternoon for your Boilermakers. Men's basketball and women's basketball teams kick off practices today, right around the corner from the start of the season. And with that comes more of this talk of the NCAA. It'll be interesting to see what happens. My picks for the weekend, as I'm running out of time, it's just about top of the hour here, so I'll make it quick. And let's take a look at what is the week in sports as far as pick'em games. Friday, I'll do a Friday night special because we got a good game tonight. Number 5 USC at Washington State. I'm going to take USC in that one. You got Wisconsin at home against Northwestern. Give me Wisconsin there. Georgia at Tennessee. I'll take Georgia. And let's find another good one here. Mississippi State at Auburn. Give me Auburn. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. And last but not least, number 2 Clemson at number 12 Virginia Tech. Give me Virginia Tech in the upset over Clemson. There's your upset special of the weekend. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the NFL. Enjoy college football. Purdue football bye week. And one more week before October break. Up in the air on a show next week. I'll keep you posted. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to do one. So we'll take it from there. This has been Next Point Wins. Thanks again for all the support. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, everybody. Next Point Wins. This is a no-brainer for me. Michigan State's going to win that game. I'm pretty confident with that. They're going to win it by, we'll say, 14 points.
Lewerke to throw it. And picked off! Watch out! Julian Love, touchdown! Irish, 59 yards.
I'm going to take Penn State to beat Iowa. I think Penn State's the best team in the East.
McSorley across the middle. Touchdown! Jawan Johnson. Penn State wins it. A walk-off touchdown.
Preview.
Next game, Mississippi State at Georgia. Mississippi State, the one team that keeps me from going a perfect 5-0 last weekend. So they're kind of my Achilles heel at the moment, it seems. I'm going to take Georgia in that one.
Flea flicker to get the night started. Downfield looking for Godwin. Into his hands. And guess which dogs are barking first? Uga, get after it.
Preview.
You know, everybody's trying to say that Vanderbilt might shock them and beat them at home. I don't see it. I think it's one of those games that now that everybody's saying that, it's going to really make Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide mad, and they come out and they roll. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think Alabama wins by more than 18 points.
Low snap. Scarborough is going to walk in. Touchdown, Alabama.
Low snap, hands it off. They had the right play on, bounces it outside, and there's no tackling that guy.
I'm going to take Purdue to win it by 4 points.
Back to the ground and in for the touchdown. Isaac puts Michigan in front by 2 scores here in the 4th.